Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us from wherever you may be this afternoon. We are live from our studios in Kokumlimle on digital address GA0992539. Our top stories this hour. NDC executives in Aswase have arrested and handed over to the police a 36-year-old man accused of collecting voter ID cards of some residents of Asokore Mampong and its environs.
We are ahead of them. We know whatever they want to do. I'm working with my agents, my party people. Please, any move that they will try to do, we'll arrest them.
We'll take you live to Kumasi for the very latest on that story. Also, Vice President Dr. Bawumia hits back at his critics as he insists government's infrastructure record is massive, adding alleged non-existent projects does not minimize their achievements.
That is the case, right? And you say 26 have problems, and we are going to interrogate that 26. That means you are saying that 99.9% of what you have done is correct.
We continue with our own fact-checking this afternoon. 15 civil society organizations question what they say is the lack of openness and transparency in the Ejapa Mineral Royalty Agreement. We'll hear from them as Deputy Finance Minister justifies government's decision for listing Ejapa Royalties Limited on the London Stock Exchange and incorporating it in Jersey, saying it was to avoid double taxation. This is all to come in this edition of The Pulse. My name is Kojo Youngson. Let's get the show on the road. Now, the NDC in Aswase has handed over to the police a 36-year-old man accused of collecting voter ID cards of some residents of Asokore Mampong and its environs. Now, over 300 voter ID cards and duplicate cards found in his possession have also been handed over to the Asokore Mampong police. The NDC's regional chairman says it's a ploy to get some voters within the NDC stronghold disenfranchised.
Good morning. My executive from Aswase called me that they've arrested a guy in which he's collecting the voter ID cards. So I told them that they should bring him to the police station. I'm coming myself. But since the EC told us that they are going to delete some foreigners and minors from the register, I took it upon myself that all my Zongo communities, I put some agents, some guys there that they should be vigilant, because when they are going to remove foreigners and minors, maybe some minors from the register, the names are from Zongos and the Botarians. So I was working on that area that they should be very vigilant, so that if they see somebody doing something that is above the law or taking ID cards from people, because I know that it's going to happen. And God willing, we've arrested one of them. So I'm going to tell the police that this issue, I'm going to follow it to the last button, because nobody can make this case foolish case. And we want to know the source and the person that sent him, because what he's telling us right now is that they are going to give loans. The government is going to give loans. That's why they are taking ID cards from people like this. But why not in Shaiso, Bantima, but in Asawase? So this issue, we are going to take it to the highest level.
What do you suspect as a party?
Because what the EC said, that they are going to take foreigners out of the register. And everybody knows that foreigners comes with Votarians and Northerners. So we knew that that's the agenda. They are taking the cards so that they can see those names, so that if in case they have to delete some names, it will be our strongholds.
What do you make of the explanation he gives, that they are going to give small loans, and that is why they are now generating 10 numbers for them and the need for them to collect the ID card?
That's what, because if my mind send me clear, if you are going to give somebody loan, you have to create an office so that they can pass through the right process. But you don't send agents going around people's houses to collect their TIN numbers. And if that crowd, you have to take the person's ID card, take the number, and give it back to the fellow. But why keeping about 400, 500 cars? Because I can sense danger. And they are trying to do something that we are not aware. But I want to tell them that we are ahead of them. We know whatever they want to do. And I'm working with my agents, my party people. We are all over the place. Any move that they will try to do, we will arrest them.
This is a story of great interest. And as soon as we have our regional correspondent Erastus Asaridonko on the line, we will bring you the absolute latest on that matter. Meanwhile, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia says the government has, since the town hall meeting, added more projects, taking the number to more than 18,000. He insisted even if 26 of those infrastructure projects stated on the website are inaccurate, the government has performed well. He spoke on Accra-based Peace FM this morning. Now, yesterday, the NDC at a news conference outlined what they claim are total falsehoods contained in the Vice President's delivery, as well as the online delivery tracker portal launched at last week's event. But Vice President Dr. Bawumia says alleged non-existent projects do not minimize the government's achievement.
18,000. In fact, today, if you go to the website, because new projects have now been added, because districts are saying we have 18,075.
Nice.
Not 17,000 anymore.
And it can be tracked?
Oh yeah, it's the same website. It's the same website, 18,075. But if that is the case, right, and you say 26 have problems, and we are going to interrogate that 26, that means you are saying that 99.9% of what you have done is correct. If you can only find 26 that are not correct, right? If those stand to scrutiny, 99.9%. Now that is massive.
Well, some residents in the areas where government claims to have undertaken infrastructural projects are speaking up, describing some of them as either abandoned, untrue, or in terrible shape. Dr. Bawumia, in a town hall address, touted his government's projects in excess of 17,000, saying this is unparalleled. Well, the details of these projects are available on the website, which is deliverytracker.gov.gh. We've been running our own checks on some of them. Let's start from right here in the Greater Accra region. An AstroTurf project said to be ongoing in the Adenta Municipal Assembly has been abandoned for months, according to residents.
It was a source of excitement and hope for the people of Adenta Old Village about 8 months ago, when the MP and chiefs of the area gathered here to cut sword for the construction of an AstroTurf in the area. That was in January 2020, and fast forward, the people have begun to question the reality of the project, as they tell me for months now they've had no contractors come to work here on the turf. The park is an average size of a football pitch without any of its matching glory. To my left, there are heaps of sand and gravel, also a water tank for storing water. They tell me it's abandoned for a long period of time. Most of the pitch is covered in dust, while the other side is covered with weedy grass. The entire pitch is fenced by a rusty wire mesh. On the side of it is a hanging goalpost. Most of the children here don't care anyway, but they would prefer if the project that commenced months ago is finished. According to deliverytracker.gov.gh/projects and views here, the construction of AstroTurf at the district, Adenta Municipal District, Greater Accra region, is currently ongoing in the Adenta Municipal. However, as it stands now, the park has not been graded in terms of leveling it for any such activity. And as I mentioned earlier, we are yet to see any contractors or individual technical men working around who are working on it. It seems to have been abandoned for months. I'm going to speak to some of the residents. Some of them were here during that sword cutting ceremony in January, and some of them also heard about it and how they feel about the place. Let's start with the very footballers groomed right here in Adenta.
We saw banners and all those things.
Oh, there were banners?
Yeah.
And did they have the picture of the associate?
The president and its vice.
We want an AstroTurf to play football.
Okay. And?
I want to tell them to do it fast so that you can play football on the AstroTurf.
You want them to do it very fast?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very fast.
January, I'm back at now.
Oh, I'm starting now. Oh, I'm not cramming by park and to be my energy. Yenny a boy, you see that you didn't buy.
Now, I wash a ben and munya.
Oh, Yenya Gideon when Musa was your bear park now, I'm ranting and Baba one almost so a do holidays and let's say, Omo, you miss Omo Bobo, I'm to 2 a broom, a chip by Hania to Montino, and Mamma's manage. Am I hired that? I said, me did you, John Colado one sitting near the You can't say bear park near Yaji. Such as a holidays in the idea, program, the other say, I had no IFA.
I'm going to a moon on Bayes.
Oh, Omoka say, ain't more than 4 months. I know why be Nikai. Bam say, starting Yana, Yari moon some near Dintino, will break Kakra. And so your Jesus says, I are now from the day, obviously, I shall say.
She says it was exciting. She was one of the witnesses here the day of the sword cutting for the AstroTurf right here on the Adenta soil and park. She says that the promise they had at the time was that within the period of 4 months they were going to have that AstroTurf. She enjoys the place really because she does trade with the kids that come around. She also has her own wards that come around, play, have fun, and in fact mingle among the community. But due to COVID-19, she believes the process has stalled, and she still has hope in the authority, especially the Member of Parliament for the area, Bawumia, whom she affectionately calls YB, to come restore that contract. In a rather interesting twist, unit committee member for the local assembly here, Brock J. Okansi, told JoyNews that he had been assured personally by the contractors that the works here on the AstroTurf will continue next week.
Yes, that Juma but yesterday, one or two challenges.
We had a few challenges when we began the project, which have now been resolved. The contractor called me. He says he would resume work next week. The community has poor drainage. This often leaves flooding on the pitch. The last of its kind broke the fence. That's the reason for the pause. The MP had to solicit for extra funds to construct the drains.
But the way I had no it was a gata and
Now, the government has been explaining what accounts for some of the errors on the website, showcasing the project. Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah admits that one of such projects was entered in error.
Put in there as done. We sent our reporter there tonight, wasn't done.
Yeah, I've heard Bawumia, someone, the member of parliament from the area, make the point that yes, that was an error that shouldn't have been included.
So you admit that?
But check this.
So NDC was right on that ghost project?
No, not on ghost project. Check this.
But that was the ghost project.
Yeah, but one ghost project out of, or one project out of 17,334 does not make the entire presentation full of ghost project. But here's my point.
But you get the point.
Oh yes, I do.
You put in there. You admit that.
Well, I've repeated that 2-3 times.
Yeah.
I'm saying if it's 17,334 initiated projects, 8,746 of them completed, 8,558 ongoing, and we have reason to say, what is it, 36? Is it 40? Is it 300 that maybe are questionable? That still leaves a huge chunk, if you net it out, about 17,000 infrastructure projects across this country, even if you discount 334. I'm saying, and our argument is this: we have invested heavily in infrastructure, doing more with less resources.
Let's check some more. Let's go to the Western region. Our correspondent Natalia Kwanzaa joins us to talk about the much touted housing project in Sekondi, Takoradi at the Ituma estate. Natalia, you've been checking on it. What did you find?
When I went to Ituma Estate this morning, I roamed the estate for 1 hour and I couldn't make out any of those 13 housing projects the Vice President spoke about. I spoke to some of the residents there to find out if perhaps they know where this infrastructure is. That probably because I don't live there, I couldn't make out myself. But the residents over there also said no, they have not seen such a project in that community. I went further to go and see the landlords of the community. That's the queen and chiefs of Ituma. And when I went there, they told me that they are not aware of such projects, but I can go ahead and go to the State Housing Corporation. I made an effort. I went there. I saw their operations manager, who referred me to their national PRO, saying that we should get in touch with him. He would be in the best position to talk about this. But Kojo, from what I saw as a reporter, there is no such project at Ituma.
This is important. I believe we can now hear from some of the residents that you spoke to earlier.
There was nothing like that. As you can see, all the houses that you've seen here is now being owned by the residents, and it is individual people who own it, and it's like we bought it. Even to get it, you have to pay at least 50% of it before they will use your money to start for you. And if you see this one, this is 2-bedroom house. It is going for 300,000 Ghana cedis. And before they will give you such a house, unless you pay, let's say, half of it, that is 50%. And currently, the land, they have exhausted it, so there's no even land that you are saying that there's any affordable houses. No, there's no any affordable houses.
You have not seen such a thing here?
I haven't seen it anywhere. And as for Ituma here, there's nothing of that sort.
But has there been any discussions as to such a project is about to begin here?
No, there's no any discussion. The last discussion that we had is about our road. As you can see, when it is raining, we can't get a walkable way. We have to park our car somewhere and walk through this mud water. As you see the dust, when it starts raining, see the gutter here, it is now choked. We are breeding mosquitoes here day in and day out. So for any meeting of us, affordable housing hasn't been done yet. But the meeting that we had, it's even at the residents meeting that we're talking about our security, how we can get people to do a community watchdog for us. That is what we discussed. But nobody from even the Ituma estate has come to inform us that there will be affordable housing. If any affordable housing, then it's not in Ituma estate.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm a resident here for over 10 years, but it's not true that there is ongoing project here as an affordable houses, as we are talking now. I don't think it is true, and it's never true. So you can check out from the State Housing Company to find out whatever they are saying is true. Maybe they got some land or plot somewhere apart from Ituma Estate. That one I cannot talk about it. But if they are talking of Ituma Estate, it's never true.
But I've seen some 1 or 2 buildings they are now building.
No,
it's not parts of.
It's not true. All those buildings here have been purchased by individuals long ago. So maybe they are doing extensions. If you've seen an ongoing project, then it's an extension that the one is doing, not new houses.
So there is nothing?
There is nothing like that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Bibi Adama nkodo ha. Se contractors ri ejuma wa ha another bibi dama. Nche yebohu na affordable housing so 75% completed. Nche by this time the ehu there was spread wo area hade. But ma ogude hade nyina or State Housing frankasa wanda ebinuma tono more than 10-15 years na 20 years ago. Bibi Adama nya mete no oye muhu nti ehwo na ma mese no himfa estate ha oye himfa nti anapa no po mesi ma mo call round mekechima ya mese ai bia na baby amemo won na minyim mo call round estate mu ma kɔna bia we estate no ha munhun block kupo cement block kupo ha o be te dem bi na dan wa ha na state 1005 projects wa ha 6400 na bi na mo so metim na me bete ha dey no so on America no almost 10 years in e haya na mo munhun bibia da mo ha eyo ye ma hona nkasa wokɔ state 1004 ho wokɔ toy eyi ehon de nyina no mpanyifo bi no wokɔ toy na ahona nkasa wa ye yi and the state 1004 na arrangements but ma abanisi affordable housing party no kwarenyi bibia da minya.
Right, some residents of Ituma Estate in the Western region denying any knowledge of a state-managed construction project on their estate. Okay, now, in Natalia, have you tried to find out from the State Housing Corporation exactly which project is being referred to on the website?
Well, Kojo, I went there to speak to their operations manager, Mr. Hagan, who said he cannot comment on that, but referred me to the national PRO. I tried calling him, but he didn't pick up. So I think for now, in the region, there hasn't been any comments. I've just been referred to speak to their PRO.
And Natalia, thank you for your thorough work, and we'll certainly keep an eye out on that. Right, let's keep checking. Let's go now to the Oti region, where residents in areas where a number of road projects are said to have been completed say some of them have been abandoned. Our correspondent Peter Senu reports.
Old Insuta Road from KJB. It is one of the roads captured as reshaped and completed in the project tracker by government, but it is in a bad state. Frequent road users do not recall the last time any work was done on the road.
This road has been like this for the past 2 years, and there was nothing that was done on it. So as you yourself, you can see, if they say they've rehabilitated it, then I don't think it is true. The road is not good. For this small portion, instead of me to use about 1 minute to reinsert, I can use about 10 minutes because the road is not good. It's not good.
Nothing shows on this road that they've done anything. It's just a normal road for us to be using.
So how long have you been using this road?
All right, me, I'm right from KJB. But this, I've been using here quite a time now.
So for between last 2017 and now, nothing has happened?
Nothing is done on this road. Nothing is done. If they say the main road, fine. The main road full of dust. Nothing.
However, the assembly member for Nsuta Buem, Basaye Matthias, tells JoyNews some work was done on the road about 2 years ago when the DC for Jasikan district, Lawrence Azianle, came into office.
Every year, this road is always put into use. But unfortunately, as I said earlier on, you know, the gutters are not deep. So when it rains, it sweeps off from the top to River Kwesu. So you can see it to yourself.
He's advocating for a permanent solution to the bad state of roads in the area, which he says is affecting economic lives.
They have to put chip-ins. These are feeder roads, but when they do it once and for all, I think it will help us. Because this road, believe me to be, let them bring the bulldozers here and then do something about it. In the next few rains, it will wash all. In the previous government, that is what we said. Some of us stood firm and said that this road there should be put a permanent solution to it, that is putting chip-ins on it.
So why can't we do that now?
And I am calling on individuals, the government agencies, to come to the aid of Nsuta, because this road, as you can see, while this one is taken off, this currently most people don't know that we have a town like this.
Right, let's learn a bit more. Peter Senu joins me now on Zoom. Peter, how exactly have residents been reacting to the news that the roads in their area are registered as completed on a database?
Well, as we have heard them speak in the report, they are surprised to have seen the road mentioned as one of the completed projects in the area. And as we have heard Assembly member readily mention, but the road used to be a major road between KJB and Jasikai, but for the major road construction or diversion of the major road off the town, it's now kind of a detour road for those who want to move quickly to adjoining communities. And so they are shocked that the road has been listed as one of the completed projects. And then some of them say that it is not true that that road has been touched. Kojo.
Right. Now, you also spent some time in the Jasikan district, where government claims to have been to have completed some other projects. What are the details?
Yeah, this particular spot last year, we did a report on it. That's the Akakotes Bridge. The fact is that the bridge had caved in because of the number of cars and for the heavy-duty cars that use the road. And so the bridge caved in. And so last year, after our report, we understand that there was a sword cutting ceremony to get the road fixed. But as we speak, nothing has been done on the road. What we can confirm is that there's a chipping, tipped to that place, and then iron rods that are left in the chief's palace, which were supposed to have been used for the construction of the bridge. Those things are in various, houses in the community. But as we speak, there is no ongoing work on that particular bridge. And then what I've also found out from the tracker is that there are communities that the tracker says projects are that we can find in other communities. Others too, there are no particular towns, given to them that you go to, you can find the projects in those communities. For example, in the KJB district, a town has been named to have been where the district chief executive's residence is. In fact, the district chief executive's residence is in the KJB town proper. And that town does not even exist as a name of a town in the district. And so these are little disparities I have checked personally from the tracker as I have printed it from the online tracker, news portal. Kojo.
Peter, thank you very much for that concise update, and no doubt we'll be keeping our eye on these projects going forward. We've only just begun. It's the Pulse on the Joy News channel. We've got more coming up, including some analysis of the NPP manifesto, which was outlawed over the weekend. What do civil society groups think about it? You'll hear it right here on the Pulse after these. Welcome back to the Pulse. Let's continue the discussion on the NPP manifesto, which was launched last weekend. And today's focus is on the health sector and other social interventions. We're joined on Zoom by the country director for SEND Ghana, George Osei-Obimpe. Mr. Osei-Obimpe, talk to me about your first impressions of the manifesto.
Well, for me, anytime a political party talks about a manifesto, few things come to mind. One, the desire to win power and the genuine intent to make a change in the lives of the people. To answer the question of the genuine intent to make a desire of the people, I asked some few questions. How responsive is the manifesto to the needs and aspirations of the citizens? If you can answer that, the next question will be, how adequate is that in the sense of, in the sense of how many people can benefit from the manifesto? Oftentimes, some ideas, laudable as they may appear, may be practicable and viable, but they end up improving the lives of few at the expense of the majority. So I look at that. Then I ask the question of at what cost? What will be the cost? What will be the opportunity cost? And what will be the cost in terms of finances? What will be the cost in terms of social and environmental impact on the lives of the people? And if we can answer some of these, even answer the question of, could it have been something else? What would be the multiplier effect of the proposal that the politicians are putting forward? Then we can say that we can answer the question. If I look at the NPP manifesto, I just oppose it to the 2016 one. The 2016 one had about 66 or 68 pages, if my memory serves me right. What was unique about the 2016 one was that it was smart, it was time-bound, there were clear indicators and benchmarks. Unfortunately, the 2021 is quite voluminous, about over 200 pages. But you read from page 1 to page 151, it's all about what they have done and where they are. It is only in the subsequent chapters, exactly 33 pages, if we want to even include the relevant section, the pictures in that relevant section, about what they intend to do. And it has only been largely listed in bullet format. And it doesn't provide the benchmark, it doesn't provide the target, it doesn't provide the timelines. And that in itself is problematic in terms of accountability, because practically, if you want, if they are able to win power and we want to ask them questions about the manifesto, they will say that we did not give timeline. We know the politicians, many of them have been saying that in this country, and that in itself is problematic. But the fact that it also builds on their own achievement, I think we can debate it whether they indeed have achieved those that they claim to have achieved as captured in the manifesto. The fact that it builds and it seeks to consolidate is a good effort that I take note of.
Right. Now, let's talk about the specifics of health care delivery in particular. We know that they originally promised to build 88 district hospitals by the end of 2020, this year. This now appears in the manifesto. As a watcher of the sector, how do you respond to that? How do you react to that?
Well, actually, they have even increased it to, I think, 101.
That's right.
Because they will be providing regional hospitals in those newly created regions, and they will also be providing some disease centers, I think 3 of them in the 3 ecological zones. Well, I mean, it's quite intriguing, to say the least, that they made such a promise, and we did not hear about it until COVID-19 reality, became obvious to us. And so the president more or less reiterated that promise. But the fact that it has found itself here again, I think here I will leave the judgment to the citizens, because if they couldn't do anything about it in the previous one, and now they are even seeking to increase it and adding more to it, I am not so sure how that will be done, especially when it is not clear how those will be financed, because one of the things about the manifesto that I thought they could have provided a lot more information on is the financing arrangement. I mean, in other words, how they seek to improve on local domestic revenue mobilization. That is not so clear, apart from the point they make about digitization of the economy, re-evaluation of property, property values, and that in itself, I mean, those ones will even go to the local government or local the district assemblies. So it is not clear, and I am not so sure. Maybe as we go on, they would come and provide a lot more information as to how this time around they would deliver it. But as you rightly put it, they didn't do much about the promise of providing hospitals for each district that didn't have one.
Right. They've also talked about how they want to focus on health promotion as a preventive measure, to save the amount of money that we spend traditionally on treating ailments. So they want to promote good health so that people don't need hospitals so much. They've also talked about improving the turnaround time for making payments on to NHIA suppliers so that people can access.
I think that is a good one, because you see, primary healthcare entails prevention, and I think they should have added behavioral change as well as curative measures. So for them to be putting emphasis on preventive care, for me, is a good thing that deserves some commendation, because you see the disease burden. Oftentimes we have waited and created conditions for people to be burdened with disease before we provide intervention. But if we can begin to change people's behavior, our eating habit, drinking, smoking, cultivating habits such as exercising regularly and so on and so forth, eating well, and providing health education to the people, so that in the first place we can avoid that. So for me, when I saw that they intend to spend resources to prevent disease from occurring in the first place, that is a good way to go, because then they are now coming back to some of the points that some of us have been making, that we need to have a comprehensive primary health care strategy as a channel for attaining universal health care. And I see that clearly spelled out in their manifesto, and I think that is a positive that I saw in that regard. The question is the resource side. You see, oftentimes the intents, when the politicians state these intentions, they do not specify clearly how they intend to fund such interventions. Like I said, 2016, in some of the interventions they proposed, they did well by stipulating how they intended to do so. In this particular one, apart from the fact that they are looking at the financial sustainability of the national health insurance, they didn't quite go beyond expenditures that fall outside the purview of the National Insurance Authority to indicate how they will resolve that. But I hope that as time goes on and as the engagement goes on, they will come clear on some of these nebulous areas.
Right. Now, I want us to talk a bit about another thing in the manifesto, the establishment of cancer centers, and also a plan to extend the reach of covering treatments for cancers under the NHIA. Now, we're joined by the National President for the Coalition of NGOs in Health, Gabriel Benaku. Mr. Benaku, thank you for your time. Maybe we will start with the cancer centers and the extension of payments for cancer treatment under NHIA. Good move?
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. I'm in the field, so forgive me for that. But before I make comment, I think I will need to comment on the document. The document is voluminous, quite articulate on what they have done and what they are seeking for. But on a more serious note, I think that they have not learned from the 2016, and they have not learned from the feedback severally that has been given to them as from civil society. And this is not a good thing politicians will want to do. Political parties will always have to take feedback from civil society, because we are much on the ground than what they can ever do. And so we haven't seen much from civil society. But also looking at the document, it's about 216 pages or so. Given the situation of Ghanaians, one wonders how Ghanaians will be able to go through that and be able to make a decision. But I mean, that's their choice, and a good feedback to them is that they will have to have an abridged version of this. Otherwise, it will be difficult for we, the middle class, high-level people, to be able to have time to go through all this. The issue of cancer, issue of the national health insurance, issue of health education and health promotion, that goes together in a nutshell, can be termed as preventive health approach, has been seen in a very simple term in the manifesto. And I think that is not very articulate enough for for us as civil society. But we also think that the manifesto must be smarter, not even smart. We have gone away from smart manifestos. If you look at 2012, 2016, the two major political parties received a lot of support and a lot of engagement from civil society. So we do not expect a manifesto now from a major political party to be quite simple and very ambiguous. I mean, coming from our history. So we intend to engage the political parties. We want to be a bit mild now. And we, the Coalition of NGO in Health, would like to create a platform for the two major political parties to really articulate what they mean in their manifesto. And then we will help them to develop a framework and hold them accountable should any of them win. And that is what I think I will say for now. I will want us to wait for the other political parties to come out with theirs, and then we can now hold a roundtable discussion with them.
Right. Mr. Benako, while I have you, I'm happy to be corrected in case I am the one who missed it, but I've looked through this thing and I couldn't find a single provision in this manifesto for mental health. What does that tell us?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That you know the way I present my issues passionately, but I want to just forgive the MPP manifesto now. I want to have a very fair and balanced discussion as soon as we get the other political parties' manifestos. We will do the analysis. Currently, we have done the analysis. We are waiting for the others and do it and compare especially the two of them who have tasted government before and see how it is, and then create a platform to hold them much more responsible.
Right.
Like the health insurance, we have a lot of issues on the health insurance, merging the national health insurance with the health, preventive health. It has correlation, but they need to have two-pronged strategies.
Right.
It must not be one strategy to be able to do that.
Mr. Benako,
we're talking about the universal access to health care.
Mr. Benako, forgive my interruption, Mr. Benako. I hope you can hear me. Forgive my interruption. I just need to correct this. We have noted that the manifesto lists that there will be the construction of 2 new psychiatric hospitals and rehabilitation of existing ones. So there are going to be 2 more psychiatric hospitals and the existing ones are going to be rehabilitated. Certainly that is not a small thing. But would you assess that to be sufficient, or would you expect more in the area of mental health?
This assessment, the coalition have already published a document on in 2018, we assessed the midway of the ruling government about the delivery, what was contained in the manifesto. We assessed them for after 2 years, and that time they had implemented only 30% of their manifesto delivery. Now that we are in an election year, we have assessed again, and we would like to make this in another platform officially. How they have moved from the 30% after 2 years, we will be able to announce it. But there are critical issues in the health sector, which to me, I think that they have switched off their lenses to receive good feedback, especially with those who are directly working in the health sector. We are giving so much information out there that they could have taken advantage. We have researched, we have published that they could have taken advantage. We are not seeing much of the civil society that represent the masses input into the health aspect of their manifesto. But we hope to do a thorough engagement to give a very fair platform for all the political parties and question them, especially the 2 of them who have tasted government. We will question them and let them provide feedback for Ghanaians to decide.
Okay, now let's wrap this up quickly. So at this point, with your assessment, Mr. Obimpe, of what the NPP proposes to do, would you say that if this party were to win, Ghanaians would see an improvement in the delivery and access to healthcare?
Is this question to me?
I think we may have lost Mr. Obimpe. So yes, Mr. Benako, please give us your wrap up on that last question there.
Yeah, we would like to get more explanation of the issues listed under the health section of the manifesto, so that we can really take a decision on it. It's very scanty now from my perspective, from our understanding in the complexity in the health sector. We have done the research. As I told you, I'm already in the field. We know what Ghanaians want in terms of the current situations. We want to see much of that. We want to meet them and we want to publish that to them and want to see whether they will be able to polish it up by taking the issues that we have from the field. And that's why I want to create that fair playing field for the two major political parties to engage them and let them have what is happening. And so they will be able to polish it up for further communication to the general public. And we are actually going to hold them responsible for whatever they will say. So having that meeting with them will really bring out issues that we are going to document and more or less will pursue it during their implementation.
I want to thank you very much for your time with us, Dr. Gabriel Benako, who represents the Coalition of NGOs in Health. He's the president of that coalition. Thank you very much. Now, as the debate on whether or not to legalize commercial motor transport business wages on, motorbike riders have welcomed the promise by the flag bearer of the NDC to legalize the trade. JoyNews' Manuel Coranting has been out and about speaking to the commercial motorbike riders who have been sharing their thoughts about plans to regulate their trade.
President Asama Kano say because what take conjano so one ne papa eti conjano so me say ye di omunim call parliament ye demonstration call parliament me ka me no me go forward e call ya ye di esu komo mo say ye person omu legalize na ye ye djuma e bia o mbati tax free and sema fine ye ko kan no o say okay o mate yanko na o ma mo abasi nde e na obasi o si free so e na o si oba obeye eno no o kanu mpacho e mu nga kakra
because Okada na no anya obia e na feel say o ye Okada duru ba bia nema bi na otimi hu say obi wuram Okada na jimam na odi moto say odi fa obi na onye kakra eto no bottom nti meti say your former president John Mahama say obelig da say Okada e me de pa
because of this Okada on yes oba asama baba na nye because you have some binu wa ye me say me won kola 5 me ye juma bia ejuma we na me dia show me first one na one year SS to see our university first year because of Okada enya Okada ena me ye ya manya half plot kra ma si dan ba ko si so a me ne me yire ne mba wo
sika Okada no musa
oh say juma bia enam se na obeye no because me say be from the beginning me say be 20 Ghana every day for 1 year. Oh
see a day obey juma otumi nya sen
e magi me ba juma na yakopon duma mitumi nya 70 100 a day.
If you are not careful, you can work at the end of the day, you do cause 90 job. Because if you work a day and police catch you 3 times and take you, if you work a day and police catch you 3 times, despite the fact that you work that day, you not get 50 Ghana and they catch you 3 times. Whether you like it or not, if a police catch your motor, you have to do something before you can go. So that's why I see to it that the business, it seems that we don't have any support. Because we don't have any support, we see to it that they don't value us as human beings in Ghana here. We are also voting. So that is why I just make a point like if they will not legalize it, then they should do something to it. Because I know when they cancel this one, it's going to be a big effective. Because the population in Accra here doing Accra job is not small population. And because of a lot of two things that there are, a lot of people enter into Okada business.
Yenye red, who say red in any econo. Ye jina traffic light now. Police near Oba, or jina traffic light or direct traffic light. It is duty to direct traffic light. But over just dumano, abache moto. Until you do traffic light now. Now, fears be up by a home. Until you say, hey, you pass up, police in the bache. So 100 Ghana, 50 Ghana, 70 Ghana. Sometimes Uber and the crown for passing your back. Maybe 5 city na wokunokuo na 3 city ana police akoche demand 100 Ghana.
Fascinating stuff. Right now, I'm fortunate to be joined in the studio by the head of research and programs at the Motor Traffic and Transport Department, MTTD, of the Ghana Police Service, Superintendent Alexander Kweku Obeng. Superintendent, it's a pleasure to see you. I see you've come prepared, lots and lots of documentation.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually am hoping for a more practical conversation here. You and your men and women are responsible for enforcing the law that already exists. That law says that it is illegal for a person to carry a commercial passenger on a motorcycle. But we see it every day. It's part of our reality. So talk to us. Is it an impossible law to enforce?
Thank you very much and for the opportunity. And good afternoon to viewers and listeners on JoyNews. I'm happy to be here and be discussing issues on safety, particularly road safety, which means the mobility without risk. Can you imagine? So that there won't be, you go out, step out, and you will not go through a situation where there will be a crash involving you, associated death or injury or damage to your property. But is that the case? No, because the data shows clearly that there are certain gaps. And because of that, it's always good that we sustain this discourse. And I'm happy that the generality of all Ghanaians have their hands on deck. And for the first time, I used to be in the past, are discussing the issues of road safety. And so far as I'm concerned, the issues are not new. Because we all decided that we will use motorcycle for only private use. And then in certain instances, allow for limited use of it for dispatch purposes, carrying parcels and other things. But over time, we all agreed that, yes, and we are doing our enforcement. Because if that one goes with certain safety protocols in terms of using it for private purpose, and it should be registered. And you attest that most of the motorcycles that you see in police urban jurisdiction have been embossed with vehicle registration number plate, blue with white lettering.
With respect to Superintendent, that is not the problem. No, that is not the law that is being broken. The law that is being broken is that they are using the motorbikes to carry commercial passengers.
But I'm saying that the law, as I'm talking about, prescribed using it for such purpose. And it banned not only the motorcyclists, but all Ghanaians from procuring it, intending it to use it by all means, and for people to board it. You and I have been banned from going near somebody to collude so that you agree with you for you to board and then pay, and for him also or her to drive you to a designated place and all that. But all of us have, over time, as a result of our situation, and they so rationalize, and it is across the country.
So that means it's impossible to enforce this law.
The enforcement is challenged because the policing is contingent on the situation. And know that this one is also an emergent something. And of course, you try your best, but enforcement of the use is sometimes very difficult. A pillion rider on it is sometimes difficult to know. For example, Why is it for private or higher? These are some of the challenges but we all are also aware, and we shouldn't pretend that across the 17 police regions in this country and in all police urban jurisdiction, motorcycle use for private and for commercial has become diurnal and nocturnal life, a part of nocturnal life of Ghanaians. And the earlier we recognize that there is a situation that has emerged or emerging, it is perplexing, it lacks adequate solution and protection, so that we all chart a new course. And I think that it's a good discourse, and I'm at the back also enjoying it, because when you look at the decade so far, when we implemented the second Global Road Safety Plan in Ghana, and it was assessed by UN, it's no longer going February this year in Sweden. It came up that we have failed drastically. However, when it comes to awareness creation among governments, politicians, it achieved much. And I think that road safety experts should bank on that achievement and then sustain that discussion, so that in the end, road safety will also attract the political will that is so lax, so that we'll be able to put in, as a state, certain pragmatic policies and programs that will offset some of the gaps that exist that are impacting on the lives and property.
Candidate John Mahama says he will legalize Okada. From the enforcement point of view, MTTD, would this be a better situation than what we have today?
So far as we are concerned, policing is contingent on the situation. So if experts, and first of all, before you do that, you need a policy thinker, you need a visionary. So if somebody dreams of something and comes up with this idea, and it is bought, and the common forum, Parliament, accepts that bill or policy, and then review the existing LI and incorporate it and gazette it and give it to the Inspector General of Police. Who are we? As traffic police officers, when the same document is handed over to us, all it requires that we train our personnel in the content and the procedure of enforcing it. And then we partner with our stakeholders and proceed. So for us, it's not for us to determine what goes into the law.
Right, so President Obim, forgive me for pushing you a bit, because, I mean, you are the expert. You're MTTD. You are responsible for managing our traffic from the policing point of view. And the question I'm asking is purely about policing, not about policy, about policing. If this becomes the reality, if Okada becomes legal, will it be a better situation from the police point of view? Or a worse situation?
You see, for so far as I'm concerned, any policy that comes with these procedures of enforcement, both institutional and physical deterrent, deploy traffic police officers to complement, to make it work, and other arrangement that will come with it. If it comes, so be it. What is important for me is that when you go across the country, it is obvious that you and I have bought motorbikes, and we are using it more profusely than what the law intended to be used for private purpose. Everywhere in the country, everywhere. And therefore, I don't think we cannot be aloof, but look at it and be pragmatic. Whatever that comes with it in terms of enforcement, the police will go ahead with it. But all right, from the look of things.
Let me try and put it another way. So you have already told us that your current job of enforcing the law that says it's illegal, that is not possible. The reality of the situation on the ground shows that it's not possible for the police to properly enforce that law. So now the question is, if it becomes legal, the police's job will then change. You will now have to regulate their use and ensure that they meet all the requirements, they do not break traffic rules and so forth.
I don't know whether you know the commercial use of motorcycle requirement. I don't know whether we know it now.
The point is, now whatever those requirements may be,
that's what I mean.
The police's job will be to enforce them and ensure that these same people who you can't regulate today, you must then ensure that they obey all the traffic regulations, they don't ride dangerously, they use protective equipment properly, you would have to ensure that they do that. Now today, you can't even ensure that they stop at traffic lights. If they legalize their operation, can you ensure that they obey the road regulations?
Oh, what I've, I said, and I think maybe you didn't catch, I said that currently the motorcycles that we are using in Ghana is supposed to be used for private purpose, and there are certain safety protocols that people, and when you look at where we started from in 2012 when the law came, from ground zero, majority were not wearing even crash helmets. Now, you go into the streets of Accra and elsewhere, you see that majority have registered their motorbike and they are on crash helmet. That is the plus for enforcement and sensitization. Elsewhere in the Northern Third, you go, you see that people stop at traffic light, but sometimes it's difficult for them to put on the crash helmet, which is also a challenge for us. They cite certain rational geographic conditions, that is why they don't in those areas. So we are trying our best, given our sociocultural disparities and background. And so far as we are concerned, we have done what we have to do, but when it comes to the use goes beyond just mere deployment of traffic police officers. See, we must get that understanding. So when it's about regulations, about enforcement, not necessarily identifying a body of traffic police officers, give them training to go and stand. No, elsewhere where such experience is being practiced, it is not only traffic police officers deployed. It is also about certain regulatory measures, sometimes institutional. For example, training. For example, construction. For example, operation. And this operation, you're talking about how elsewhere in the law, it is designed in such a way that it operates along the cooperative lines, so that the operator license is used as an enforcement tool, that the members whom you are working with the motorbike on this route, if they don't comply wearing this kind of uniform and particular vehicle, if they don't stop at traffic light, your operator license will be withdrawn, for example. So best practices are there in terms of, this operation and enforcement. So it's not all the time that you look at only traffic police when it comes to commercial use of vehicle on the road. And that is why elsewhere in Ghana, for example, experts have said that the way the commercial transport operation in Ghana is being regulated is not the best. And therefore, people are agitating that even there should be a dedicated state institution that will regulate the use of commercial vehicles in Ghana. I'm not surprised that in Act 993, such responsibility has been given to National Road Safety Authority. You see what I'm talking about? It is not police to supervise GPI2 cooperative and all that, so that you can use licensing withdrawal, okay, and as a punishment too. You can use suspension. You can have inspectors to go and all that. And elsewhere where these things are done, they look at that. So far as police are concerned, sometimes it has to do with safety protocols. And the safety protocols, the use of vehicles, we try our best. However, our best may not be adequate, but we continue to do what we have to do. But in the data, I want to say something. We are always looking, when you hide behind only commercial, we make mistakes. Private people are also involved. Dispatch are involved. And it's that when I have this opportunity, I try to sensitize a bit. What is important, which will not go away, irrespective of whether you're using it for private or for commercial, are these safety protocols. The motorcycle or any vehicle you're using has to be registered. And you don't need compulsion from police to do it. Basic. Two, the motorcycle should be insured, okay? Right. And then the one on board should be 18 years or above and should have availed him or herself to DVLA and might have passed and holding Ghana driver license category A. Are you with me? And when you have this, it makes it, and then out of the acquisition, you will be inculcated with the fact that one of your safety equipment is protective clothing, at least if nothing, crash helmet. Wearing it is very important, so that pillion rider that you are picking should all the time wear it. Right. This, when you do it, will help us. However, let me also make my last appeal. In the course of this discussion, we should also don't lose sight of the fact that our roads are also riddled with broken down vehicles and disabled vehicles and accidental vehicles. And it takes days before these are to. In other words, I'm pointing the state's attention to the fact that we have a gap in terms of collision into vehicles that are broken down. Therefore, towing system should be looked at.
Right.
An investment purposefully directed towards it so that the state can boast of a pool of towing trucks, or individuals should be encouraged to procure more so that they can support the traffic police across the country to rid off our road of all these broken down transit vehicles that, unfortunately, if we are not alerted early, or it happens at night, or we delay before we get this heavy towing truck to go and pull, people get crashed into it, and we lose
It's an important
lives.
call, Superintendent, but today I want us to focus on the motorcycle. So I want you to have a look at this just for a moment. We want to see how other countries are regulating the Okada business. Now, we put the focus on Rwanda's capital, Kigali, where JoyNews' Matilda Bawumia filed this report back in 2019.
This is the city center of Kigali. This is the central business district. It's a very busy place where taxi moto appears to be the easiest and affordable means of transport within the city center and some communities around.
Cedric has arrived from Ruyenzi town center to Kigali, Rwanda's capital. The ride from Ruyenzi in the southern part of Rwanda to Kigali is part of Cedric's daily routine. Kigali is the busiest destination for taxi motos in Rwanda. But you can't just buy a motorcycle and start a commercial business. It is orderly and properly regulated.
You buy a motor, then you come to the cooperative.
Which cooperative?
There is so many cooperatives here. Yeah, so you are registered after. But the first, you should have driving license, right?
License,
yeah,
okay.
Driving license.
So if I don't have license, I can't ride?
You can't ride.
Really?
It's forbidden. Yeah.
It's forbidden?
Yeah.
Elias has been in the business for 8 years. He tells me how disciplined the riders here are.
The government asks you to have a license permit. After getting a license, you go in an association like cooperative, and then you go to ask the insurance. After getting insurance.
So you need insurance?
No, I have it.
Everybody has insurance?
Yes.
If I don't have insurance, I can't ride motor?
No, the law is against you if you don't have insurance. Wow. You have insurance for life, even insurance for the motor. Yeah.
I see.
And then you start to work.
To work?
Yeah.
So how is it? Can I just...
Taxi motos are the most convenient and affordable means to get through the city of Kigali. Kigali city accounts for over 60% of motorcyclists in the country, with the number of registered operators under the Rwandan Federation of Taxi Motor Riders totaling around 35,000. Rongugu Gendemore is the acting city engineer of Kigali.
Taxi motor here are combined into cooperatives. These are cooperatives that are formed to make sure that nobody's working as an individual. Everyone has to be registered in a certain cooperative. The cooperative have got leaders, and these leaders are the ones that we work together to make sure that all the discipline is, of course, respected. So we make sure that all the rules that we have set up, all the regulations that you have to follow are all respected by enforcement. We have to enforce. Of course, you set up the rules, you set up your goals, you set up whatever you want to be established, but if you don't enforce, then people will not respect it. So we make sure that we have the enforcement part that is working very strategically.
Okay. Also, I realized that for people within the cooperative, you can't move from one jurisdiction to the other. How do you ensure that? How are they able to tell that this taxi motor is coming from Ruhango and the taxi motor can't work in Kigali? I'm wondering how you do that.
Here you have to have documents. You have to have documents on which cooperative do you work to, which cooperative do you belong to. So whenever we want to verify that a taxi motor driver is working in a certain district, not in the city of Kigali, we have to make sure that on a daily basis we ask for the documents that they have, so that I can make sure that this one is working from the city of Kigali or is working outside the city of Kigali. Among the taxi motor drivers themselves have leaders, and they are the ones that could be able to say that this one we don't recognize him, so they report it and then the case be taken to.
Okada is a thriving business in Ghana, but many of the users lack discipline and regard for road traffic regulations. In fact, the trade is legal in Ghana, but of course, there are still dozens of riders using their private motorbikes for commercial purposes. And the trend has been blamed on lax implementation of the law by city authorities. There are certainly many lessons to be drawn from the Rwandan experience. For JoyNews, Matilda Vamaga, Kigali, Rwanda.
Right, let's get some more opinions on this. Joining the conversation now is the Director of Planning and Programs of the National Road Safety Authority, David Osafo Adonting. Mr. Osafo Adonting, it's a pleasure to speak to you once again. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Kojo.
Right, now, just as we did with the police, we want to get to brass tacks here. The problem, the reason why it is dangerous, the reason why the Road Safety Commission is concerned about Okada is because of the safety concerns, the fact that motorbike accidents are increasing. In fact, over a 5-year period, the increase in motorbike accidents is something like 1,000%. So the question I have for you is this. By simply making it legal for a motorbike rider to charge money of his pillion rider, making it legal, how will that make the roads safer?
Kojo, thank you very much. And first of all, let me commend you for the documentary you just showed in Rwanda. Indeed, very, very, very insightful. That is exactly how it is in Rwanda. Myself and the police officer right beside you and a few other members were there in Rwanda to see exactly what is on the ground as far as motorcycle usage and Okada operation is concerned. Indeed, the law, as is provided in 128 of LI 2180, was not just there by chance. It came as a result of data, information, research from practices across the world. And then Ghana decided somewhere in 2012 that we would not want to put our people into that risk, which means that if we were to open up at that time, we anticipated that there could be a situation where we could count the number of deaths like we are counting currently. As I speak to you now, I believe my good friend, police officer, has already given some statistics. But if you are counting about 532 deaths, motorcycle-related deaths, then it is not something good to write home about. Indeed, we are worried about the situation. Now, we said we did not legalize it because of the risk involved. If you sit on a motorbike, the risk is higher. In fact, I would put it about 4 times or more than that higher than sitting in a motor vehicle, where you are protected. You are covered by the whole, prestige components of a vehicle. This one, you are exposed to the road. You are exposed to everything. If you should go down for one reason or the other, you go with your head directly to the road. You go with your hands or your legs, and so you are not safe at all. And so whether legalization or not legalization came as a result of the research that we did, that we actually identified that it is riskier for anybody to sit on a motorbike at any point in time, whether private or commercial. Now, when it comes to commercial, the difficulty we have is that the level of indiscipline grows very high. Indiscipline. Because this is a person who is riding for money. He's doing it for gains. And so the more you do, the more you gain. And that is that is the difference between the private man and the commercial man. The commercial is such a way that he has to run hurriedly as many times as possible in a day so that he can make some ends meet. He can double or he can triple his revenue. And so he doesn't respect any law. He doesn't care about whoever, any other road user. And so in being in that situation, if you tend to open up without putting in place mechanisms to protect human life and property, then you risk it. I mean, you stand a chance of getting this kind of numbers that we are seeing. So we can see that opening up as far as legalization is concerned, then you have more people coming in and perhaps more people riding with indiscipline without respecting the laws. And you can imagine what will happen. So that's the difference between legalizing and not legalizing.
Right. So in essence, you are actually attributing quite a significant amount of the danger that these motorbike riders pose to the fact that their activity is illegal.
Exactly.
So if we simply legalize their activity, they would suddenly be safer.
If you legalize, then the situation could change. What I mean is that you could have more people coming in because this time around it is open. You could also have a situation where, because there are many, they'll be overwhelmed. I mean, the numbers will flood the roads. The police, in terms of capacity, may not be able to control them. And for that matter, they can do anything they like because you cannot pursue them in any way. And so the level of indiscipline is very also likely to rise higher than we can manage or can control. And so that is a risk that we attribute to legalizing it. That is a risk.
So
in terms of numbers, in terms of level of indiscipline and the risk associated with it.
So on the balance, what would be the expert advice of the National Road Safety Authority to the government of Ghana, whichever party is in government? What would be your advice? Legalize or keep it illegal?
Okay, I think I like where you're coming from. Your question has positioned me in a manner for me to say that you have not politicized it. And so I will go from that line. It is not about a question of politicization. It is not about the question of whether it is in Ghana, for example, an NDC, an NPP, or PPP, or CPP. No, it's a national problem. And we, from the National Road Safety Authority, we have already raised a red flag that looking at our statistics, it's an area that we should look at comprehensively. Well, I think the question will be whether legalized or not legalized. We have made it illegal for a number of years now, since 2012, and even beyond. We have seen that on the ground, the situation is not like we wish. People are not respecting the law. And so on the ground, they are operating without reference to the law, without any respect to the law. Now, what we have actually proposed that there are a number of models that are operating across the world. You have just shown one from Rwanda, which we have observed it ourselves. In other jurisdictions, they have made it such a way that you cannot use two persons sitting on one motorbike. That is a model they are also using. So one person for one motorbike, and it is naturally the rider alone. You don't take any pillion rider. It is a very smart way of avoiding all this kind of menace. In our case, we are clearly saying that the law is not working. If the law is not working, a law that does not work means that it has to be reviewed. Now, how do we review this? A lot of options are coming. We are all sharing views and opinions. If we want to maintain the status quo as it is in the law now, then enforcement must be vigorous. And my good friend Supo Obin sitting there would have to tell us if it is possible that they can enforce to the brim. If they cannot, then it means that it has to be changed to a situation where perhaps we open up and regulate, like it's been suggested by our former president. What that means is that the moment as Ghana, if we all agree and decide that that is the way we are going, then it means that we are putting in place mechanisms, systems that will enable us to regulate properly. And I'm talking about proper regulation, in which case there are serious sanctions, there are ways of monitoring, there are ways of putting them together and watching them so that they comply with the rules and the regulations. If we are unable to do that, then we will not even need to go there at all. Because as you said earlier, even now, wearing of helmets that we expect them to do, they are not doing it. Stopping at red light signals, intersections, they are not. Now, if you want to move into a new era of regulation, what is the assurance? What capacity do we have to go that far into regulating when even we are not able to regulate now or enforce now? So there are a lot of questions that we need to, but we will need to try a certain model, which means that somebody must be a champion. And these are suggestions that are coming. To me, we need a national debate because, Kojo, it has gone beyond safety. It's gone beyond transport. It has gone now into governance. Because if you go to the rural areas, I can tell you that without the motorbike, somebody will have to walk a kilometer or two before he gets to his destination. And is that what we want? Can there be a situation where we can allow for certain communities in the rural areas and perhaps not open up in the cities if it is possible? So these are all models that we are discussing. Currently, we have not stepped on one particular role or one particular model, but I think that it's leading to a situation where we may at one time along the line as we move along, come into the issue of regulation. It is very likely. That is not to say that is the position of the National Road Safety Authority, but on the ground, what I have personally gone to see across the country, where it is widespread and it's becoming difficult for us to enforce, and you see assemblies are even levying them, taking revenue all the time, and now people are complaining that they don't have jobs to do, and this is what they are living on, and so on. I won't be surprised that in the near future, proposals will come in numbers for us to regulate a kind of a situation in that.
You mean to legalize and regulate?
It's an option, and I won't be surprised. I will not be surprised. That is not my position anyway. But I will not be surprised unless we are able to control from the rural communities, where it is very difficult for some people to get transportation from one destination to the other. It is a very difficult situation in those areas. And they don't have any alternatives. There are no options of public transport like you and I enjoy here in the cities. So balancing the rural and urban situations, I think that is a very sensitive area. Unless
Mr. David Osafo-Adonte, I want to thank you very much for your contribution there. Apologies for cutting in our time. Unfortunately, does not wait for us. Here's how I'd like us to wrap up. Maybe a very quick overview of the numbers. So far this year, do we know how many motorcycle accidents, how many deaths we've seen this year?
Yes.
And how does it relate to last year?
Compared with we all know what happened last year, for example. But when let's look at the January to July, for example. Last year, we had about 2,675 motorcycles involved in crashes. This year, it has increased by beyond 14%.
Wow.
To 3,058.
In spite of the lockdown at some point and all of that?
It has gone up. And in the process, this year, for example, we've lost 532 Ghanaians, January to July. And if you compare, this year is a bit higher. And it's nothing because generally it's a trend that we've left a whooping gap in the road safety issues relating to safe use of motorcycle, particularly the commercial. And so, as Mr. Dontin said, from all it's obvious that we cannot overlook it, but take the bull by the horn and know that it has become part of our resources and what we do, so we should do something about it, because police deployment alone cannot solve issues of use of motorcycle for commercial purpose, but it needs additional intervention in terms of re-engineering of the law, institutional enforcement arrangement, and operation of it. And this is the best practice across the world.
Superintendent Obi, I want to thank you so much for your time with us. It's always enlightening when you join us. But now you understand why this conversation is important, and it will not end here. Now, civil society organizations are demanding a suspension of the Ejapa Minerals Royalty Agreement until all necessary documents have been disclosed. Now, they are calling for a multi-stakeholder conference to take another look at the deal. Dr. Steve Mantiao of ISODEC spoke on behalf of the 15 CSOs who organized a press conference today.
We take this opportunity to call on His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo to, 1, acknowledge that though the Minerals Income Investment Fund and its special purpose vehicle may be legal without public input, it fundamentally goes against his pact with the Ghanaian people, particularly the mining communities, to cede 20% of mineral royalties to develop the communities. 2, to suspend the implementation of the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act until all documents relating to the establishment of the special purpose vehicle and its beneficial owners have been disclosed. As concerned Ghanaians, we sought to assess the transaction documents on the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act's Secretariat, only to discover that it has none. 3, establish a multi-stakeholder process to review all options to optimize the mineral royalties in order to secure risk-free revenue to the state. Gold royalty is the most certain revenues to the state. Even though commodity prices tend to be cyclical, gold has only oscillated within 20%, which makes it a more stable commodity than oil. And with oil losing demand growth to alternative fuels, gold is expected to continue to exhibit some stability as a source of revenue. 4, to recognize that by its current approach to the implementation of the Mineral Income Investment Fund Act, government may appear to be encouraging citizens to transact business in tax havens. Ours is a struggle against the elite capture of resources that commonly belong to all Ghanaians. And we call on every one of us, regardless of our political persuasion, to join hands in safeguarding the national interest.
That was today. Right, there's more on the pulse. Sports comes up next, right after these all-important messages. Gary Al Smith has all the headlines, wrapping it up from the world of sports.
Thank you for staying with us on Joy News, and this is the Pulse, and this is the Sports. I'm Gary Al Smith. So you might have heard that the Joy Sports team has been building up to the Congress, the 26th Ordinary Congress of the Ghana Football Association, that is slated to take place on September the 1st. Now, in this report, we have news that the GFA is set to present over $12 million in the budget for the Executive Council to approve. That will be from July, that's just passed, until June next year. Muftar Nabila of our team has more in this report.
The money is expected to cover 4 thematic areas: football governance, football competitions, administrative governance, administrative and running expenses, and contingency. In the document, the GFA says the drive by our marketing department will generate the revenue required. Part of the revenue would be from Puma, the key sponsors of the football governing body in the country, and StarTimes, the broadcast rights holder of the Ghana Premier League and the FA Cup. Puma, and StarTimes are expected to give the GFA a combined 8,840,000 Ghana cedis. Other sources of revenue for the association are expected to come from FIFA Forward, CAF, EC, and UEFA Assist. About 46.9 million would be generated from these institutions. Annually, FIFA contributes $750,000 to the Ghana Football Association. Protests, appeals, fines are all sources of internal revenue generations, and it is expected to yield 327,400 Ghana cedis, whilst players' registration, intermediary, and transfers are earmarked to give the FA 8,769,122 Ghana cedis. Other sponsorship proceeds the leadership anticipates would generate 6,774,651. The additions of these figures takes the total budget of the GFA to 71,642,158 Ghana cedis. The cost of other items such as fuel and water would be taken care of by companies the FA intends to partner.
As I said, it's on September the 1st. Now, one of the key issues that we broke and that's been raising eyebrows has to do with the allowances of the GFA Executive Committee. The previous administration, headed by Kwesi Nyantakyi, was always being given the wag because of the set amounts that they were taking. Key among them was the fact that they were taking too much in ex gratia. Well, this GFA Exco say they will not take ex gratia, and that will be ratified at the Congress. However, allowances will be increased, and the allowances will be increased to up to about 300%.
Man committee headed by Frederick Moore, Chief Executive Officer of House of Oak, with Delali Senaye, CEO of Inter-Allies, and Samson Nateyo, a financial consultant and lecturer, as members, recommended that the president of the GFA, Ket Okraku, should be given a monthly allowance of 12,000 Ghana cedis compared to that of Kwesi Nyantakyi, who had his figure increased to 4,388 Ghana cedis in 2018. The vice president, Mark Addo, would be on 7,000 Ghana cedis, almost 4,000 Ghana cedis more than Georgia Free, who had his allowance increased from 1,500 Ghana cedis to 3,484 Ghana cedis in 2018. The rest of the executive council members would be on 4,000 Ghana cedis compared to the other three emergency committee members of 2018 who were on 2,621 Ghana cedis. Executive committee members were not on monthly allowance in the previous administration. Other emoluments, such as per diem of $500 and $400 for foreign travels of the president and vice president, would also be discussed. Exco members would be on $300 for foreign travels, and flights should be on business class tickets for all. In 2018, the per diem for president, his vice, and MCO members for foreign travels were boxed for 7 days and paid. Kwesi Nyantakyi and Georgia Free were on $1,980 and $1,583 respectively for a minimum of 7 days trip, while the rest of the MCO received $1,187 for the same duration. For local travel, all members of the defunct executive committee, including president, were on 300 Ghana cedis. This figure has been increased by 100% for the president, who would be on 600 Ghana cedis, 200 Ghana cedis more for the vice president, and 100 Ghana cedis increase for the rest of the EXCO. Some members of Congress have raised concerns about the absence of financial data to back the ability of the association to pay such emoluments. Others argue that the remuneration of current leaders of the association should be dependent on how much they have contributed to the growth of the company. They say the economic value-added model should be prioritized to determine the executive compensation or emoluments. However, Frederick Moore's committee have suggested an end to the payment of ex gratia to members of the Executive Council as previously practiced. Ex gratia for the FA leadership between 2011 and 2015 was $15,000 for each member of the Kwesi Nyantakyi-led administration.
Many thanks to Muftar for those pair of reports. Now let's go to the transfer market, where Chelsea seem to be hugging all the headlines. Now the player to your left is Thiago Silva. You might remember that he was in the Champions League final only on Sunday with PSG, and the 36-year-old lost, but he's been with PSG for 8 years and won 7 titles with them. He's on a free transfer, and Chelsea have done the business with him. The man in the middle is Kai Havertz. hugely anticipated to make Chelsea better in the middle, and Ben Chilwell, who is from Leicester City and expected to shore things up from the back. This man, Sarr, is coming from Nice in France, and he's expected also to be signed by Chelsea, but will be taken on loan to Germany. Keep an eye on the transfer market with the Joy Sports team, and that's the sport for now. I'm Gary L. Smith.
Well, this is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of The Pulse. It's been a pleasure. More tomorrow. But in the meantime, if you want your regular news fix, you know where to go. myjoyonline.com. All the headlines are lined up there for your enjoyment.